my roses while I'm here. Rather be loved than feared. Don't really know what's up from here. Just speak up now and save your tears.
In today's video, we're going to be talking all about how to grow Philodendron Pedatum. If you haven't already, like and subscribe for more planty content like this. Philodendron Pedatum is often known as oak leaf due to the shape of its leaf. The pedatum originated in South America and became known to man in 1644 in Brazil. The pedatum could grow up to 20 feet tall. The leaves change shape and size as it climbs and matures. With the right conditions, we are able to achieve this in our homes. My personal plant started out as an established 7-leaf plant that I purchased from a local grocery store. She was in nice condition and looked pretty healthy. I cared for her and gave her all the conditions she seemed to love because she thrived, grew big and beautifully for me here in my home. As much as I would love to grow her to her full potential, my home just doesn't permit that because I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment. So that means from time to time, I have to do a little pruning. So this was my first time cutting her back. I wasn't at all nervous because I knew this would promote more growth. Also, look how the original leaves upped in size over time. And being that she's a fast grower, she bounced back from that chop in no time. Let's talk about lighting. During this time, I kept her directly underneath a grow light. Nothing more, nothing less. I feel like if I would have given her a bit more light, and also if I would have upped the size of her stake, I feel like the leaves would have matured much larger in size than what you see here. But again, because of the space that I'm working with, I feel like this size was perfect for me. Now, after a good pruning, your pedatum should be putting out plenty of new growth. And because I saw this, I felt like I wouldn't go wrong with another chop to make her become more bushier, because once I chop, it would encourage the new growth points to push out new leaves. So even with all her beauty and lush, I went on ahead and did what most of you may not do. And that was give her another chop. And just like I thought, it created a much fuller and bushier plant. And if you notice, the leaves sized up once again, and the older leaves turned into a matte green, which was a beautiful contrast to the newer green, which were a little lighter green in comparison. Notice the shape of the leaves as it has grown larger. It's also given more detailed, as it has this pillowy look and fine lines within each leaf. So at this point, I continued to care for her as I usually do until I didn't. Sadly, I went through a phase called plant burnout, which I am currently recovering from. And because I neglected this plant so much, she started to decline. But even with the decline, she showed her resilience and continued to grow. I started to let her go long periods of time without water, and it began to show. Here she is now, sad with yellow leaves, leggy, and looking tired and dry. I no longer have her sitting under the grow light, which is mistake number 2. So that is why she is growing leggy. Her soil has become so dry to where it's compact, and I need to kind of break it apart so that she can get air floration within. And this is causing yellow leaves, of course. Proof that this plant is very resilient is because with all the neglect that I've given her, she's still pushing out new leaves and new growth. They're not as large as the old leaves have been in the past, but she's thriving still. And I feel bad. So starting today, I'm going to start giving her some TLC. First, I'm going to start by removing the yellow leaf that she have hanging here on the side, because There's no need for it anymore. It will not photosynthesize. It's eventually going to fall off itself. So I'm just going to break it off. Don't be like me. Use shears or scissors. That's the best way to do this. You can also dab the exposed area with cinnamon, but I didn't. I haven't in the past either, and it seemed to be okay. Let's touch more on pruning. Here you see a set of nodes and an auxiliary bud. You would like to cut above these two when making your cut. I've decided to chop my plant once again to create more fullness at the base and to give her a better chance of new growth, leaving me with this whole top piece to propagate and potentially create another plant. I will be placing this cutting in perlite to grow the roots, leaving my mother plant with just 4 leaves to work with. I'm pretty okay with that because I know that she will bounce back once I give her some tender loving care. So we're going to give her a repotting and change this old soil. Actually, I think I'm going to keep the same soil. I'm just going to break it up so that it has more aeration to get that air flowing through. As you can see, I should be ashamed of myself. Look how dry the soil is. It is dry to the bone. But it's okay. I'm going to get her right and get her back growing in no time. So here I am gently removing the soil from around the roots. I'm not being too rough. I'm not being too gentle either. So I'm doing just enough to loosen up the soil. Some of you may be wondering why I didn't give the plant fresh soil. Well, the reason being is because there's nothing wrong with this soil. I just let it go dry for far too long. So I just chose to break it down to give it a reset. Also, I didn't see a need to upsize her nursery pot, so I put her back into her home that she was in before. Also, when I watered, I thoroughly watered. What I mean by thorough water is I watered the soil completely until it drained out of the bottom, and I let it drip dry before placing it back into the planter so that she wouldn't be overly wet, but just enough to leave her nice and hydrated. But remember those potential growth points I talked about in the beginning of this video? Well, as you see here, the plant has 7 potential growth points. So I'm hoping that each one of these growth points push out a new leaf and leave my plant nice and full how she used to be. I also plan to move her location and put her in a southwest facing window where she can get plenty of light, bright, and direct light. Because she is a fast grower, I do look forward to seeing her push out her leaves fairly quickly and hopefully have an update for you all sooner than later. For now, this is what she looks like. Now to propagate her top cutting. I could potentially make 3 to 4 cuttings out of this, but I'm just going to make 1. So sadly, I will be removing this bottom leaf, leaving the nodes free to merge into the water or perlite, which is what I choose to use today. Mind you, you do not have to use perlite. You can use water, you can use moss, you can use stratum, whatever you decide, but today I will be using perlite. So because the leaf I removed has no node, it is useless at this point and considered trash. You will not be able to propagate this. So what you see here is what will be submerged under the perlite and under the water to push out the new roots. So some will say you need to wet your perlite before using it, but I think either way works. I think wetting it just helps prevents all the dust from flying. In this case, I didn't wet it first. I just added it to the vase, and I will wet it when I go to water it down. And over time, as I see it dry out, I will go back and add more water. From here, I will put her in a bright, sunny place and hope for the best. And as I always say, enjoy peace, spread love, and be blessed. And happy growing.
I know I make the effort, I try to make it better. This life shit isn't eternal, I never become a burden. I know just how that can feel, I know that it can get real. But my squad all for the turn up, we getting money to come up. They really all know the deal, one goal is just to stay real.